Good evening, and welcome to tonight's TI Technology webinar hosted by Texas Instruments. Tonight we're going to take a look at the TI-84 Plus and hopefully maybe show you some things that you didn't know that your TI-84 Plus could do. We see we have a lot of people joining us for the first time, so if this is your first Texas Instruments Professional Development webinar, thanks so much for joining us. We also want to thank everyone for completing that survey on the right side of your screen. My name is Mike Houston, and I'm the moderator for this event. I teach algebra and calculus near Pittsburgh, where I use TI technology to make tough-to-teach, tough-to-learn concepts accessible to all my students. I'm really excited to introduce our two panelists tonight. With us, we have Margot Mankus and Debbie Poss. Margot enjoys working with TI software developers and teams of educators to bring the educator's wish list to the graphing calculator classroom. Margot is an applied mathematician and enjoyed a fulfilling university teaching career, teaching math majors and pre-service elementary and secondary teachers in Illinois, Utah, Montana, Virginia, and New York. While teaching, she was involved in NSF and Eisenhower grants for teacher training. She now enjoys her work in product development and design at Texas Instruments. Thanks so much for joining us, Margot.
Thanks, Mike.
And Debbie believes that she has the best job in the world, teaching high school mathematics. She is starting her 39th year teaching at Lassiter High School in Marietta, Georgia, where she uses graphing technology daily to engage students. An active member of GCTM, she has been a part of the T³ family since 1995, presenting annually at conferences, providing professional development workshops, writing mathematical tasks, and serving as a consultant for Texas Instruments products. Debbie, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
We're expecting a large crowd tonight, so your audio is automatically muted. Please feel free to send any questions throughout the webinar to Debbie or Margot using the Q&A window in the right section of your screen. We might also be using that chat window to send general messages. We hope you don't have any audio issues tonight, but in the event that you do, try selecting Communicate from the WebEx menu, choose Audio Broadcast, and then click Join. As a reminder, this event is being recorded, and you'll receive a certificate of attendance at the conclusion of the webinar. If you'd like to try and follow along tonight with your TI-84 graphing calculator, that would be great. We also encourage you just to sit back, relax, and enjoy and watch and interact because you're also going to receive a link to the recording in your email within a couple days. So some people find it easier to go back and rewatch this event at their own pace with their handheld, with their graphing calculator, and that way they can stop, pause, rewind at any point. At this point, Debbie is going to discuss our agenda.
Hi. Well, Michael has already given us the welcome and the introduction. So the next thing we're going to do is talk about some of the features of the TI-84 Plus that Margot and I believe many people might not be aware of, or at least the ones that we enjoy the most. After we're through, Michael is going to share with us some online resources, and we definitely want you to stay till the end because we're doing a webinar giveaway, complimentary registration for the T³ International Conference, and you will definitely want to be around for that.
Thanks so much, Debbie. And Margot is going to discuss a few expected outcomes.
Thanks, Mike. So tonight we're going to be focusing on some highlights for the graph table mode. It's a split screen mode you'll see on the calculator. Many of you may have used it. We're also going to look at some interactive draw features on the graphs that you may enjoy. We're also going to be looking at inequality graphing app, just to show you what this app is and how it enhances the Y-equal editor. Then Debbie will talk to us about the test features and using the test features to graph number lines and piecewise functions. They'll also talk about using resets and press to test for test mode setup. Both Debbie and I will be using TI SmartView CE emulator software for the classroom presentation tool. We'd like to remind you that everything we're showing tonight is on the TI-84 Plus CE, the TI-84 Plus C Silver Edition, and the TI-84 Plus. Some of the features on the TI-84 Plus CE are enhanced. That is our newest model of the TI-84. And just a reminder that the TI SmartView CE emulator also includes all 3 emulators. However, we do recommend that for an enhanced experience, you consider doing a class presentation with the TI-84 Plus CE.
Thanks, Margot. If I could just interject quickly. In a few minutes, we'll be sharing our screen. And when we do that, both Debbie and Margot will be using the TI SmartView CE software tonight. So you'll get to see that in action. Also, those right-hand screen panels, like the chat window and the Q&A window, which are on the right-hand side of your screen right now, once they begin sharing their desktop, those windows will move underneath a green floating toolbar that you'll see in a few minutes. And so you can bring those windows back by moving your mouse under what will be a green floating toolbar in a few minutes. Thanks, Margot.
And Mike, oh, there we go. We're also going to cover some just quick information on free resources. So on slide 8, remember that we are posting all the files you see tonight, and you can get them after the webinar. There's a lot of great links for you. There's a lot of free resources available. This slide 8 is basically talking about, remember that we do have really great guidebooks, and that we also, I think the biggest thing off of this page I want to mention is that right in the middle, TI SmartView CE, there's a free 90-day trial or a free update. And we also are proud to announce that coming very soon, you'll be able to demonstrate single sensor data collection with Easy Data app on SmartView CE in the next version we are, like I said, is coming soon. Mike, let's go to the next slide. For tonight's activities, we're going to be giving highlights of certain things that, as Debbie mentioned, that both Debbie and I think you'll enjoy. And we wanted to point out that there are some free resources on 84 Activity Central, and there are links to specific activities that cover topics from tonight, say inequality graphing app, graph table, and the piecewise or Boolean logic using the test menu. And don't forget, these are going to all be posted, so you can always go back and review and get a lot of goodies.
All right, Margot, thanks so much. It's all yours.
Thank you. Let me know when you can see my screen.
Looks good.
Okay, great. So I'm going to first talk about the graph table mode. I'm a big fan of graph table. Graph table is a way you can see the graph, the numeric, and the analytic all in one view. And this is on the 83 and 84 as well. When the 84C and 84 Plus CE came about, you'll see that there's a higher resolution screen. You can see a bit more. I want to point out that the activities that I mentioned, there are two links on the slides I mentioned about one, building a garden fence. You can already see that the screen is in a split mode. And there's also a variable of renting. So as you listen, you may be able to follow along, but if you can't, you can always come back to those activities to get an experience. I'm going to use graph table in a way of sort of family of functions, trying to look at a plot and see if we can get the parent function over to what the shape of the plot is. So the way I've got the calculator set up tonight is that you'll see right here there's a graph table mode, and notice that as you do arrow down in the mode screen, if you look at the second line in the status bar, it gives you a little help on what the line is if it's available. So for example, now I'm on the function types, I go down to the line that starts with full, and on top I see the word screen view. I go over to graph table and I press enter to set the graph table mode. So I'll be in graph table mode. I'm also going to make sure my window is set up the way I want to for this activity, and for this activity I would like the Z decimal setting. I've already got that set. And I also want to call out that I'll be using the format window. Now some people are not quite familiar with that, but there is a graph mode setting above Zoom called format, second format, and here there's a lot of goodies to set, and in particular I want the grid line on, and I'm setting the color as medium gray, so all those are a preset for the webinar to make sure that we keep moving along. I also chose to put the border color to a different color. There's a few colors there. It makes it kind of fun. And I want to show you also how I've set up this particular activity, a family of functions for graph table. In Y equal, I've got what you might think is an odd function. Well, it's not odd, it's even. I have Y3 set at 0. And I did that because by default Y3 is black. I just want a function hanging around on my graph that I will then manipulate and change in the graph table view. I've also got my list set up, so I have L1 just being, in a Zoom decimal window. L2, for this presentation, I created a locked list. So if you look below, the quadratic that I'll be questioning about is actually the negative quantity x minus 2 quantity squared plus 3. That'll be sort of the function that we kind of guess when in graph table, and so I've got all that preset. And so if you were running this activity, that would be sort of a preset before you started a discussion with your class. And now let the drum roll happen. Oh, I guess I have to mention one other thing, that I do want a plot on, and so I am going to turn plot 1 on. I've already got it set up for L1, L2, and I changed the color to green. So I press graph, and now I'm in a view, a split screen view, and the graph is obviously on the left side, table on the right side, and in this case, table also has a list view. Now the way we can negotiate this screen is if I press second, then table, just like you would do table, notice that the focus changed over to the right-hand side, and that the cursor landed on L1, but I can cursor down, and you can see that what's happening is I'm tracing the pairs of points. So now I have the visual of connecting what's on the graph to the numbers. I can even go further and look up to see what that L2 is. Now in front of a class I wouldn't do that because that's what we're going to try to guess from a parent function. And what's not on the screen, and this is what you need to kind of play with as you're setting up your classes, is that if I go over to let me change something just real quick here. I think I would like to get this back. Thank you for your patience there. Okay. And I'm going out, I just wanted kind of a simple view here. So I basically have the default table setting. So I've got the Y3 is just 0, which kind of looks odd, but it's just sitting there on the axis waiting for me to do something. So in this particular case, let's look at the screen so that you know what kind of help you get actually on the screen. It turns out that when you're on the XY table, if you arrow up to the Y value, so I'll arrow up to the Y value, you can press enter and see what it says, press enter to edit. I can actually edit the function from right here. And now I have full control of the numbers, the graph, and also the equation. And here we'll do, you'll all know this activity, being very familiar. Let's go ahead and say the parent is x squared. How do I manipulate that to make it fit over the green plot? And we can go through again, going up to y equal. Have your set of questions that you would ask your students. What would be the next question? How do you shift it? How do you, are you going to flip it? And so here for Y3, maybe we would start with, and I'm going to put a paren in just to save time. Let's say that, I don't need that paren, but I'm putting in there for a little bit later. Let's just say that first steps, you might want to flip the function. Did that match? No. Let's go back up to Y3. And I think you can pose your questions as needed for your particular students at their level. But here we could talk about like first shifting. And now how do we shift up? And again, I'm going to flop back to table and get back into the Y view. And we all know that the magic number at the end of this will be +3. Now, as I just want to call out that as I did cursor path through the math print template, so when I got up to the square, I want to call out that there's that different kind of cursor with that arrow, which says you can enter something there, but then you can also move on. And when I pass by the squared, notice that the arrow is again telling me get out of the exponent to do more. And then I added my +3. Let's see if bingo, does that hit? Hey, guess what? And so now you can have nice conversations. Again, pressing the graph key changes the focus over here to the graph area. Pressing second table, just like in the normal operating system, takes your focus over to this black outline, and you'll first see the lists if they're there. And I'll warn you that if you're going to do an activity like this, you do need to like stage it the way I did, where I had some lists there, and I also did have I had that 0 in Y3 just as a dummy function, because that sets up this side of the graph table view to have all the columns you need. And so with that, that is sort of the highlight of the 3 areas of graph table. We've got the graph, we've got the table. We know in table we can do a lot of fabulous editing, and we also saw the analytic down here in an edit line. Now we're going to move to another topic of what else can you do on the graph screen, and I'm going to move into talking about the interactive draws. So what I'm going to do first is just go ahead and turn off that plot. I can go to Y equal and just toggle the plot off right there. I'm going to keep Y3 its view, and let's just go look at that function. So many of you may be familiar with using the calc menu for intersects and max and min. We're going to try to do a little bit of a interactive feel for maybe where the maximum is, and we're going to be using the draw menu. The draw is right over program, and we all have our own styles of communicating a key press. I like to use second and then name where we're going, kind of teaching people how to fish. It's above the program key, so second, draw, above the program key, gives me a very, very interesting Etch-a-Sketch type menu. And what I'm going to do now is just use the feature called horizontal. And because I came from an active graph, when I press enter, it's not a command, it's actually, there's a blue line there. And if you notice up in the status bar, we see draw horizontal line. So we know what world we're in, we know what's active, we know what's interactive. We also notice there's a style key here, and that style shortcut key is basically situated up above the graph key. So sometimes you'll see that people say press F5. Sometimes they just say, oh, if that little tab's there, the shortcut key, just press graph. And so here, if I do press the graph key, I have, just like I have in Y equal, I have some options. I could change the color. Let's say that I want to go for magenta. I could change the line maybe to thin in this case. I press OK. And what happens is here, just like on the 8384, I can arrow up. I can even move that cursor over to, I'm on the grid line now, because we suspect that 2 is the vertex. We suspect that the max is happening at x equal 2. This is a very simple function for this demonstration. But we can get up here, and once we get up here, we can press enter, and it actually stamps that horizontal line. And now I can move again, and let's say for some reason there was some physical characteristic to whatever problem you were looking at that you needed to look at, let's say where y is 1. Why not? I can press the style key again, which is that graph. I could change maybe the color to green, and I'll leave it as thin. Maybe this is another line you want to stamp for the discussion. And yes, it's stamped, and you move away. And so now I've drawn 2 horizontal lines. Now the pink one, we know that we could be just kind of searching for the maximum. I'm going to press clear, and those particular lines will stay there. If I want to remove those lines, they are just drawn on top of the graph, and I can go to second draw again, so above program. The command called clear draw basically shakes that Etch-a-Sketch kind of drawing away, and it's gone. Okay. We also know that, so we investigated things about maybe where the max was up there. I'm going to go to table for a second to kind of complete the discussion here, graph table. So I'm kind of mingling graph table along with draw right now. But if I come over to table view, I want to call out that many of you probably do this already, where you change the table setting and actually go to table set to change the increments and such. But if you notice, when your cursor's in the X column here, there's a little breadcrumb up here that says press plus for delta table. This is on the 83 and 84 as well, except it appears the first time down here in the edit line. And when I press plus, I can actually change the increment to something where maybe I'm searching maybe by 5/10, and I can start to look at the numbers in view, the correlation with the cursor going up the graph, looking to where the maximum is. Again, this is a pretty simple problem, but we're trying to use the whole visual of the numbers next to the graph to see maybe the max is there. We could press plus again to see if there's a lot of times in some problems that you really need more refinement to see where that max is, and I'll go down to 1/10, and I'm doing it all in view. And you notice that the cursor was on 2, the cursor stayed on 2, and then the table redraws so that 2 is the second line element so that you could see what's happening to either side of the X value you had in question. And so we could think that this is, yeah, looks like a good candidate for a max. And again, in this view, the other feature that's definitely still available is if I go press second calc, which is above the trace key, we do have the tried and true, find the maximum, please find the maximum. And the reason we are asked for bounds, we're asked for to tell the calculator where to compute the numeric algorithm. We're asked for a right bound and a left bound, so we go to either side of the point of interest. We're asked for an educated guess. I know it says guess, but it's an educated guess, so the algorithms will march to the correct value. You arrow back. And notice while I'm doing this in the graph table view, notice all of the support that you're getting by the numbers and the graph right next to each other. No change in focus for the students. And I press enter, and there's our maximum. Due to algorithms, we're getting a little bit of round off within the tolerance, so it's a good discussion with your students about, well, why does it say 1.9999 here, but here we're getting 2, what do you think? And you could have a good discussion about how numeric calculators work, actually. So with that said, Let's go to another interactive draw feature. So I've kind of blended the interactive draw with the discussion on graph table for horizontal. Let's go down to vertical just to remind you what else is on this screen, on this menu. Vertical line test. How many of you do a vertical line test? Maybe you take a piece of spaghetti or maybe a yardstick against the whiteboard, or whatever your chosen presentation tool is. Now with SmartView and using the these interactive features, you can use a vertical line. Again, the style key's there, so I could change the color to, let's use red this time. There's red. I'll make it a thinner line this time. And you can scan the function in the graph window to see if it's for every X there is one Y. You can again stamp a vertical line if needed, and now I could change colors or stamp it again. There might be some reason why I want to look at the particular interval I am now stamping out with the vertical line, and I press clear, and now those red lines are drawn over the graph. They will stay there until you do a clear draw, and again, that's going back to second draw, using clear draw, and voila, it's gone. Another interactive draw feature that's interesting, that may captivate some people's interest, is tangent. And what's interesting about tangent is, again, I could change style. So right now it's black. Let's go back to green. I'll make it thin again, and I press OK. Those spinners are nice, convenient controls. And here I can either arrow to a particular value, and again, notice that you can have a lot of lively discussion because you also see the neighboring points, and you can talk about finding the slope between two neighboring points and actually refine this and get it closer and closer to what the slope of the tangent would be. I can also just jump to a value. So if I want to jump to the tangent at 1, I can just enter 1 and press enter. And what should happen is, there we go, we've got the tangent, and while this function is not saved, it is right now, it is appears in the graph border, and you can have discussions on the tangent. So that closes for the interactive draw. So thank you for bearing with having the discussion of graph table with interactive draws on graph table. I hope that you can see like there's a lot of powerful tools underneath so that you can guide your class with good questioning, and also hopefully, you know, starting out with a real world problem. That's the way that the activities in 84 Central start out with. In this case, they're building a garden fence with a fixed perimeter to maximize an area. There's a lot of really, really nice stuff here in terms of social conscience and, you know, starting with blending this into a bigger kind of experience for your students where math becomes part of a bigger experience, like designing farms and such. Also, there's this about the variables of renting. This one's very interesting because the kids do get the expression, they develop the expression, and they're talking about video rentals in that particular one. So let me move from, actually I'm going to stop here for a second and take a breath. Mike, were there any questions about graph table or?
The only question that came pretty early on from a few people is, how do you lock L2?
Okay, that's a good one. So be careful when you do this, because I know in graph table when you lock L2, when you lock a list, then you can't modify it in graph table. But when you're, so if you don't have a locked list in graph table, you can do all kinds of cool things with lists, like enter extra points and then they plot live. It's amazing. But with this one, all you have to do is, if you're going to put in a formula, all you do is start the formula with a quote. So down here in the edit, quote is this little quote mark above the plus sign. It's in green, so it's associated with a third, sort of a third shift, which is our alpha key. So if I press alpha quote, which is a plus sign, then all I have to do is reference another list that's populated. And in this case, I did second L1. Whoops, no I didn't. I had the whole quadratic in there. I'm sorry. Didn't I have something like second, L1. When you see the mouse up here, I'm using the mouse, but I'm also using SmartPad, which is an app that you really must use. It's so cool because I'm now pressing the keys on the keypad because my calculator just became a keyboard for this. I think I had something like this as the function. No, I guess it was 2. Sorry, let me go back there. I think it was that one. Ah, boy. There we go. Okay, so so that's a locked list. To unlock it, all I have to do is delete that quote. And actually remember that second, and then right arrow jumps me to the end. That's a very nice tip about editing lines. Second, left arrow jumps me to the front. Second, right arrow jumps me to the end. Very, very helpful. Now if I press enter, what will happen is the lock will go away. And now when I go up to L2, I just see the list of numbers. I don't see the formula anymore. So when you're running that activity if you're running the activity where you put something in and then you guess, I don't have the plot off, but you have to play with this a little bit just to know what you're allowed to do. And I may have messed this up a little bit. Oh, I think I had the wrong function. Okay, we've got a lot. Well, I have to move into inequality graphing. So what I'll say about the function is that it should have been x minus 2 then plus 3. Let me edit this just. Okay. Now I should be back in the state, sort of what I'm in. I'd rather not go troubleshoot that right now. I think I'm just typing something in wrong in the rush of this. So, but basically, did that answer the question, Mike, about locked lists?
Yep, I think so. We have one more question from Myra. She wanted to know if you could draw a tangent to a circle.
So so we have a function grapher. So the only way that you can put in a circle is if you do the positive and negative square roots. And then you should be able to, if I did something like, what do I want to do here? I'm trying to get this so that it's on the window. Yeah. So you can, but you have to play with the graph a bit. So what happens is, remember, we're a pixel grapher, and you see that now I'm graphing a semicircle, but it's not going all the way down the axis. That's because if you start looking at the numbers, the pixel that's graphed here, the next pixel over is not in the window I'm graphing. Now if I do an interactive draw, though, so I invite you to play with that a little bit because our grapher is 264 by 164 pixels, and you do have to, there are times with certain functions you will want to make sure that you stage what you're talking about. So there we go. Does that help?
Yep, I think Myra said it. She understands, and thank you.
Okay, great. So let me clear some of this out. Now, one thing to quickly clear, I can, if I press clear, if I changed any of the settings, it just pops back to default. So I would like to show you. Okay, I would like to show you inequality graphing, and I'm looking at the time allotted for my section of my piece of this, and we're a little bit over, and so what I want to do is share with you that inequality graphing is an enhancement to y equal. And if I just show you quick, notice that there's a big box now around the entire line style, color style, also the relation. And on 8384, when you get over here, the relations will appear down here. Now on CE, you press enter, and it's all housed in our the spinner dialog boxes. And the minute that I change the relation, the style will correctly reflect the mathematics now. You can't have an equal with a shade above, shade below when inequality graphing is running. And if I go down to Y3, I just want to show that, again, I could set another relation. And let me go, this one I'm going to go less than or equal to. If I press graph, and I'm still in graph table mode, we have the full shading, and I want to share with you that for the 8384, and at this state, you would see tabs under here that would have some features. Now on CE, read up above, it says go to second calc, and when you go to second calc, there's a special inequalities menu that houses all of the great things that inequality graphing apps will do. It will find intersection points, calling points of interest in case it's a strict inequality. You can do an inequality intersection and further change the color. You can get the union, shade the union. You can go back to the original, and then there's a little bit of help as well. I'm just going to close this by showing you the intersection. And on the redraw, you will see that the intersection is painted. And so we really invite you to investigate that app. And again, there is one activity that we list out called the impossible task, and it has students, it's a manufacturing situation where students make decisions given certain relations. And so we certainly invite you to go look at that. And again, remember that's a preloaded app in your apps menu it's called N equals Z, but it's the inequality graphing app. And all it does is enhance Y equal. And if there's an X equal editor for constant, and if you don't want the app running, right across the top it says quit app, and you get out of it, and you quit it, and we're closed. So with that said, Mike, any other questions before we turn it over to Debbie?
Just one from Kelly, and she wanted to know, how do you get the box around the equal sign as well?
So that's when inequality graphing is running. Right now, on a Y equal editor, you turn the function on and off, and then you go change the style. When you're running the app sits on top of Y equal and is in a true enhancement to make it a true relation grapher. And in that case, when you arrow over, when you arrow over, there's a lot of things that we want that can be changed. You can press enter, you can change the color. Here's where you change the relation on CE. Okay, on the 83 and 84, you'll see tabs down here to use alpha F keys to change to less than, greater than. Here on using the spinner, you can get to the relations, and once you pick a relation, the style is fixed because it's a fixed shading. Does that answer the question?
Yep, it did.
Okay, great. And remember that this app should be preloaded. If your calculator does not have all the preloads, yes, on education.ti.com, search for apps for your particular calculator, and you can download them. These are all free, and use TI Connect to get them to your calculator. And 1-800-TI-CARES would be happy to help you with that process if in case you kind of get lost or that this was a lot of information at once. Okay, I think we move to Debbie.
Thank you very much.
Debbie, I'm passing control to you now. There you go.
Okay. Good, thank you. All right. Are you seeing my screen yet?
No, Debbie, you're going to share your desktop with us.
Okay. Share. There it is. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Are we here now? Okay, good. Now.
Hey, Debbie, sorry to interrupt. Do you have any sort of windows open in the middle of your screen? Because I have a gray box. There we go. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Can you see me now, so to speak?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right. One of my favorite topics on the CE is the Boolean algebra, because I just think this is fascinating, and it has so many powerful different connections that you can make with students. And the way I usually introduce this one is to have students type in something like 5 is greater than 2 on their calculator. And I'm also using the SmartPad app. So I'm going to press 5 and then go to Second Math, which is the test menu. So I'm going to press something like 5 is greater than 2, and then press enter, and our result is a 1. And then I'll have students press something like 5 is greater than 8. And then once again, I'm going to that test menu, and our result is 0. So at this point, I will ask my students to talk to their neighbor about what in the world you think the calculator just did. And I will find someone who, after a while, is willing to share. And usually they will tell me that whenever you type in a true statement, the calculator responds with a 1. Whenever you type in a false statement, the calculator gives you back a 0. Well, that in itself is kind of cool, but some of the applications it allows you to do are just wonderful. For example, let's consider what you could do if you wanted to graph a one-variable inequality. All right, I'm going to press Y equal, and I've already done the same thing. I went ahead and loaded the inequality 3x plus 7 is less than x plus 1. Now, rather than solve this algebraically, I'll consider what the graph is going to look like. So I ask my students to think about what this graph is going to look like. The domain is all reals, but the range is either 1 when the statement is true or 0 when the statement is false, which means, let me graph it. We appear to be getting a number line. Now, if we trace this, all right, the problem with this is, depending on the window, we don't always get the exact point of intersection. And you can say this still begs the need for algebra, which I think is fine, or you could go back and graph each side of this inequality as a function of x and have students make some further connections. Because if I graph this function and then this function, how does that graph relate to the inequality that we just graphed? And then once again, I ask my students to talk about this. And hopefully, they will tell me that this point of intersection, and I'm going to find the intersection, okay, the point of intersection between this function and this one is the endpoint of my inequality. And I think this is a beautiful connection for students to make, that whenever, I'm going to press my Y equals, so whenever the 3x plus 7 is actually less than or lower than the x plus 1, at that point, or those are the points I should say, in which case we see the inequality graph a 1. And I just kind of think this is neat. And this doesn't have to be linear. This also works for quadratics as well. In the sake of time, I'm not going to look at that one right now. But instead, I'm going to look at another application that we can use, and that is using the Boolean logic, we can also graph piecewise functions. Let's consider the following piecewise function. This week, I could buy ground chuck at one store for $4.29 per pound, or go to another store that has ground chuck for $3.79 per pound, but it's sold in packages of 3 pounds or more. You've probably heard something like this before. If I try to model this using and by the way, I'm just going to delete these functions right now. If I tried to model this, then basically I would be looking at multiplying this 3.79 times X, the $3.79, times the number of pounds I wanted to buy. But there's a problem with this. And the problem is, this is only true when I buy 3 pounds or more. So in order to get this to only graph when I want to buy 3 pounds or more, we're going to divide this by a Boolean. The Boolean we're going to use is that X is less than 3 pounds. And once again, if you think about what's going to happen, whenever X is less than 3 pounds, oops, my apologies, should have been greater than 3 pounds. We can fix that. Whenever X is greater than 3 pounds, then this particular Boolean expression is going to be 1. So I'm going to be dividing my function by 1, which is fine. That doesn't change the value of the function. However, when I have an X value that's less than 3 pounds, this is going to return a value of 0. And since the calculator cannot graph or cannot divide by 0, I'm not going to get a graph at that point. I'm going to do the same thing with the function below it. All except this time, I'm going to divide it by X is less than 3. I'm going to need a slightly different window for this one. So why don't we go from, I'd probably buy less than 5 pounds, so 0 to 5. Counting by 1 seems reasonable. And let's see, the price is going to be bigger than 0, but probably less than $25. So that sounds reasonable. I'd probably want to count by 5. And if we press graph, we didn't get what we anticipated. And let me figure out what, okay. I think I know why. And that is I forgot parentheses. I apologize. The way I had it typed in, it was dividing it by X, so I was getting a constant function instead of getting a linear function that then needs to be divided by 0 or 1. And as you can tell, we have a beautiful piecewise function now. If we press trace, then if I am on a part of the function that doesn't exist, for example, right now I'm trying to buy my ground beef for $3.79 a pound, but my X value tells me I only have 2.68 pounds. Therefore, I can't get to that price. And it isn't until I jump over to a number greater than 3 that I'm able to buy my ground beef cheaper. I think this is a wonderful feature on being able to graph piecewise functions. Mike, are there any questions about this?
We had a question earlier from Elizabeth. Her question was, why does it show two blue lines when you graph the inequality and not just the solution. That actually probably was for Margot. I apologize. We just got a question about step functions. Do you know if the TI-84 plus family can handle step functions?
Absolutely, but if I was graphing a step function on the TI-84, instead what I would do is go up to y equals, and I'm going to clear these out if you don't mind. Clear, clear. I would probably use the built-in function of the calculator, which can be found under the math screen. So if you go to math and then go over to number, INT is your basic greatest integer function. So let's see, I'll graph the greatest integer of x. And then, if you don't mind, I'm going to play with a different window, because for this one, I really like to see zoom decimal. I think it shows it a little bit better. And there's your step function. And if you trace on this one, you actually see the calculator jump. That's 0.9, and then when you go to x equals 1, you jump up to the next step. So this is the greatest integer function, and that's what I would use in this case. Are there any other questions?
Phyllis asked, she knows that there are formulas in several places for the Y1 window. How does the calculator know what formulas you're using?
That's a good question. I went ahead and typed some of these in advance, and so if I want to make sure that I'm using, or I want to graph this particular function, I'm going to move the cursor back over the equal sign and press enter, and that turns the graph on. You can tell that it's on right now because it's dark. If I press enter again, you'll notice it looks lighter, and so I'm not graphing that function now.
Thank you.
Now, another feature that I found incredibly helpful this past spring is the ability to get the calculator into press to test mode. Now, press to test mode works on any calculator of the TI-84 family that has operating system 2.40 or higher. And you can find that by going to your, I'm going to turn it on for right now. If I go to the second entry, try that once more this evening. There. Oh, oops, my fault. Second memory. All right. And then go to about. That will tell you what version you got. That's your operating system, or that's your version right there, 2.55. So anything bigger than 2.4 can be put into press to test mode. You start with your calculator off. You press the left and right arrows and the on key all at the same time, and hold it down until the screen pops up. And at this point, you can change whether you want to see it initially in degrees or radians, all that. So that can be changed. Whether you want to disable your log base and whether you want to disable your summation function. But what it does is disables your apps and programs. And if you've got one of the CEs, you also disable your pictures, and I'm going to have to look and make sure I remember the other one. But it disables more if you've got a more advanced calculator. All you have to do at this point is press it. Now, I've got to warn you, if you do not have two calculators at your disposal, please do not do this at home, okay? But I'm going to press OK because I do want to reset this one. You'll notice it says that it's disabled the apps program, the angles are in degrees, although once again it can be changed. I can keep the log base on, and I have kept my summation. Oh, I'm sorry, I've disabled my log base and I've disabled my summation. It says press any key, and if I do that, and now go to the program, you'll notice my programs have been disabled. If I go to the apps, my apps have been disabled except for the finance app, and that's one that is hardwired in. Now, I'm going to do that again, only to share that this can be done on any calculator, and I want another one in. Oh, this reminds me, I had this ready to answer. I believe it was Myra's question. If Myra is wanting to draw a tangent line to a circle, if you put the circle in polar mode and graph 2 cosine of theta or something similar to that, the draw tangent function works in polar as well. and you get a very nice tangent line at x equals 0, which means it looks beautifully vertical. Okay. Now, I'm going to turn that off, so I'm turn my calculator off, and then turn this back on. Oops. Turn this back on by pressing the left and right arrow and on at the same time. Press OK, and I've now got 2 calculators in test mode. To get it out of test mode, because you need to do this too, all you have to do is link them. Now, actually, you just link your calculator with another. It doesn't matter if the other one is in press to test mode or not. But at this point, you send anything. So I'm going to go to second link, set one up to receive, it doesn't matter which. For the other one, I'm just going to send a list. I thought I was sending a list. Okay, I'm going to turn this off and try again, because I've got to get mine out of test mode too. So here goes. Thank you. Once again, press. Get them both in link mode. Send a list. I probably didn't get that, or didn't I? Here we go. Overwrite this, and as soon as the calculators say done on both calculators, they're now out of test mode. Okay? You can link an 84 plus silver with an 84 CE. It really doesn't matter because all you're doing is sending a list, and it can do that. Quite often, I will actually have my students send a variable instead of a list, because if they use their calculators for more than a math class, for example, mine use mine in science, you don't want them sending up a list and messing up one of their experiments. Are there any other questions?
Kathy just had a question about why would we even use this test guard, this test mode?
That's a good question. I know our standardized tests allow a use of an 84 calculator, but they make us clear all programs, and they don't allow all the apps. And so other than if you have a state test that won't allow certain things, or for example, if you are giving a test on conics and you don't want them using their conic app, something like that, I would imagine you would use. I use it for state testing.
Great. And the second question we had from Ashley, is there another way to take it out of test mode other than just linking 2 calculators together?
Yes, you can also link it to your computer, I believe, and download a program called, Test Guard. I'll be honest with you. I know it can be done. I myself do not do it because my students are linking so quickly that I don't need to deal with that.
Yeah, in the past, I think I've used TI Connect to just send, again, just like you did with those 2 calculators, just send any file, and it should get the calculator out of that test mode. But I agree with you. I think once your students do it once, it happens pretty quickly.
It really does. Are there any other questions?
There are a few, but unfortunately we are actually out of time, and I need to begin wrapping things up if you don't mind. That'd be great. Thanks. So we do have a couple minutes left, and as we wrap things up, I know some of you have asked some questions, and I know Margot and Debbie are going to try and get those questions answered before we end here at 9 o'clock Eastern. If they happen to not get those answered right now, please feel free to send us an email and contact us. Let me bring up our contact information. Please feel free to give us a call or send us an email. We definitely are going to be listening to you and would like to answer your questions if they don't get answered tonight. So please feel free, again, give us a call or send us an email. As mentioned earlier at the very beginning of the webinar, we are tonight giving away a conference registration for the T³ International Conference in Chicago, Illinois, coming up in 2017. Tonight's lucky winner is Gwen Stell. So Gwen, congratulations. We'll be in touch over email in the next couple days, and we hope to see you there as well as everyone else. So Gwen, congratulations, and we hope to see everyone at the T³ International Conference in Chicago. To receive a certificate of attendance, go ahead and click that link in the chat window. Also, there's a link there for the documents that were used tonight. And earlier at the very beginning, Margot was talking about a lot of resources that were available. And the nice thing about the documents link is that all those resources that she provides you are actually links that are active. So it makes getting to them really, really easy. If you're watching this on demand, please feel free to copy down that URL and type that into your browser, and you should be able to receive a certificate as well. Lastly, just in case something goes wrong and you're not able to get your certificate tonight, have no fear. In a couple days, you'll automatically receive a follow-up email that will have a link to the certificate, a link to the recording, and a link to the documents. So thanks so much, Debbie and Margot, for everything that you shared tonight. We have a lot of great questions that came through, and I really appreciate everything you did to prepare for tonight. So thanks so much. And again, we hope to see everyone back online next week. Have a great night, everyone.